Mexico Daily Review. We're continuing our coverage of the Mexico's presidential elections, which will be taking place on July 1st. And joining us here in our studios is Carlos Navarro. He's the Director of International Studies and Projects at the Federal Electoral Institute. Carlos, we are broadcasting from an international conference that is taking place here in Mexico City, where you all have called in the we call them electoral observers, but I know they're called, in here in Mexico, the official name is international visits.
For formal purposes, they are called international visitors, but in the strict sense of the word, they are observers.
They're observers.
International observers.
And you are basically somewhat talking about the electoral process, explaining the electoral process, yes, and giving them a background as to what to expect on July 1st. What else are they learning from this conference?
We conceive and design this meeting not only as a way to show them all the programs and actions that have been developed by the Federal Electoral Institute and the Tribunal in order to guarantee the transparency and equity of the electoral process, but we also want to benefit from their own views, from their own experiences. So aside of offering them an overview of some of the main programs or actions taken by federal electoral authorities, we invite them to share their own views and their own experiences. Of course, just a representative sample, but they can have an overall view of the electoral regime from different perspectives.
Now, how many observers are we talking about?
Well, there were accredited approximately 695 international visitors. Like 80 out of them are representatives of EMBs from other from other regions of the world, or from institutions that are interested or specialized in electoral issues. So that's essentially, those are our special guests. The program is conceived and designed for them, but everyone is welcome if they want to
participate.
Yes, if they want to participate.
Now, Mexico has had a tradition of having foreign observers in our elections since when?
Since '94. It was in just in '94, the very first time that. Well aware that there was a great interest among the international community of taking a close look at how the electoral regime has changed and evolved in Mexico. The Congress passed a reform that allowed the General Council of IFE to invite and accredit international visitors in each and every electoral process. So since 1994, they have been
even the fact that we have to call them international visitors just shows you how controversial this was in 1994, which was the political system did not like the idea that they would have people from outside coming to Mexico and kind of evaluating whether this electoral process had any credibility or not. So I remember this law that they have to call it international visitors because electoral observers meant that you have, which is what's happening, people coming from outside and evaluating whether this is a credible system or not.
As you are correctly pointed out, it was in part one of the reasons of calling them international visitors, because there were concerns. There were some sectors in the Mexican society that were concerned, that they were reluctant in order to open or electoral process. They imagine that once we give them the chance to come and take a look, they will try to either to
influence the elections,
to interfere, or to try to give a verdict of
who had won or lost,
or something like that.
And in 1994, it was a controversial elections. I mean, we also have to remind everybody that there was some question marks even then as to what had happened and who won and who lost. Now, the role of the international observers is pretty much electoral observers is to just go and walk around. They have access to almost any part of the country. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. The
They can go into any of the electoral sites, election sites.
Once they get their accreditation, they can move freely throughout the country. They can have access to all the offices of the Federal Electoral Institute. They can go and ask for information or to exchange views with representatives of political parties. So they are free to move. And we invite them since October, or formally our electoral process starts in October. So since then, the General Council of the IFE approved an agreement that allows them to join us. Most of them, for different reasons, essentially come and take a look during the prior days to the
They're starting to look.
Committee. But if they
can go anywhere that they want to, as long as that they have the accreditation. Now, this also kind of raises an interesting question, because as this movement, hashtag I am 132, yo soy 132, they were also looking to be electoral observers. But the big question mark was, because they came in so late in the game, whether that process, whether they were going to be allowed or not, this group of students to be observers.
Yes, indeed. When this 132 movement sprang and was had a very strong presence in the media, indeed it was about to close the period open for the registration of national observers. But sensitive to their legitimate
demands, there was a demand.
There was if I remember well, I think it was like 10 or 7 extra days, so they were able. It was extended the deadline for a few days in order to allow all these, particularly those students that have showed clear interest in getting involved as observers, to have the opportunity to register.
So we will now also have, and we should expect that in different parts of the country, there's going to be students with accreditation going into the sites, which will have the liberty to walk into the sites and to be also observers for this movement.
The period was expanded, so chances are that those that were really interested were in a position as to request their registrations.
What happens with the international visitors after July 1st? What do they provide reports? Is there going to be a press conference? What can we expect?
It depends on them. It depends. Right after, for instance, I'm going to give you the example of our international visitors, or the ones that have any sort of relationship with the IFE or with the tribunal. They deploy throughout the full day, and on Monday they have some sort of evaluation meeting. They can write a report, but they are free to go to the press and give some statement about what they saw, what are their views. But they also can, quite often they submit as a report, so they can submit also a report. Not only our guests, but any international organization that has come and take a look at our elections are free to give press conferences. They know the rules, to what extent, how far can they go in terms of their authorization, but they can also provide us with reports, and that usually happens. Some of them, the major organizations that are involved.
What can they not do? What can the international visitors, the electoral observers,
particularly during election, they cannot interfere in any way in the voting proceedings. Even it doesn't matter what they watch. They can of course write down if they notice any irregularity, something's
wrong. Something's being done wrong.
If there's something wrong, they are not supposed to go and tell the polling officers or the representatives of political parties, say, I have seen this or I have seen that, or to try to say who is winning, who is going to lose the election. Nothing related to that. They can take notes. They usually have a coordinator who concentrates or collects all the views, and they usually have a reports. What I like to say at this stage is that most of the people that are involved in electoral international observation issues are aware that are international standards that are applied almost everywhere. They are usually high experience people and not perfectly there.
So they know what they can do and not do. We are going to be providing on our website more information about the international observers, and some of which the IFE said that they would provide us some of the documents so we can. So if you need more information in terms of what the international observers or the international electoral observers are doing in Mexico, definitely go to our website www.mexicodailyreview.com or www.anamariasalazar.com. Carlos Navarro, Director of the International Studies and Projects from IFE, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you'll come back.
No, it has been a real pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us, and we will continue with our coverage of Mexico's presidential election 2012.